Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a massive, honestly, kind of uncomfortable truth. We're looking at why modern parents, with the absolute best of intentions, are accidentally weakening their kids by trying way too hard to keep them safe. We've all heard the dire warnings, but as you'll see, the science tells a completely different story. Let's kick things off with a rapid-fire look at some classic parenting fears. First up, do wet feet actually cause a cold? I mean, how many times were you warned as a kid about stepping in a puddle or running outside without your shoes on? And what about this one? Does a draft of fresh, cold air from an open window guarantee a sick child by the next morning? We so often treat a simple, innocent breeze flowing down the hallway like it's some sort of dangerous biological weapon. Or, oh man, the ultimate taboo for so many grandparents out there, does eating ice cream cause sore throats? The sheer volume of microwaved ice cream, warmed up juice, and room temperature water served to kids out of pure fear is, honestly, it's absolutely staggering. Well, here is the uncomfortable truth. Those common environmental factors, they aren't the problem at all. As our sources clearly point out, most kids are not weakened by the cold. They're weakened by constant overheating, overprotection, and fear. Yeah, it turns out we've basically been pointing the finger at the completely wrong suspect all these years. Okay, so let's unpack this baseline biological fact. Children are born naturally adapted to the physical world. Think about it. No newborn arrives on this planet naturally terrified of fresh air, right? No toddler is inherently afraid of a cool floor or an open window. We teach them those fears. The human body is literally designed from birth to interact with its environment. It really helps to think about human evolution versus our modern life. I mean, we evolved outdoors. Nobody was warming up river water before children drank from it thousands of years ago. But today, we artificially control our indoor temperatures 24/7. And when a child is constantly wrapped in 3 layers and protected from every single breeze, their body just loses its natural opportunities to adapt. So, the crucial takeaway here is that the villain is not the cold weather outside. The real enemy is the artificial climate we create inside. It's the heated floors, the hermetically sealed windows, the blasting heaters. The cold isn't hurting our kids. Actually, scratch that. It's our obsession with keeping them aggressively warm that's doing the damage. The difference is crystal clear when you compare two different approaches. Picture the overheated child, sweaty, running around the living room in 3 thick layers. That child is not protected. They are overheating, which wrecks their sleep quality, their appetite, and ultimately their immune response. Now look at the adapted child, a cool kid getting fresh air, wearing reasonable clothes. They are biologically much more resilient and far less vulnerable to getting sick. Let's actually trace the biological domino effect here because this is fascinating. Step 1, you overheat the home. Step 2, the air becomes desert dry. Step 3, because the air is so dry, the child's mucous membranes in their nose and throat get completely dehydrated. And step 4, their natural viral defenses just drop to zero. See, healthy mucus is the body's natural trap for bugs. Viruses don't enter because you opened a window. They get in because that bone-dry air destroyed the body's natural shield. I absolutely have to emphasize this simple, powerful takeaway. Fresh air is not dangerous. I'll say it again. Fresh air is not dangerous. Stale, overheated, incredibly dry indoor air is far, far worse for a child's immunity than just stepping outside in the cool weather. Now, what's super interesting about this next myth is how our fear of cold food completely misinterprets human anatomy. We actively dodge cold water or chilled treats. But what if ice cream is actually good for the throat? This brings us to a really neat concept called local adaptation. Believe it or not, exposing the mouth and throat to cold treats actually stimulates local blood circulation. It's basically a workout for your throat. Just like lifting weights trains your muscles, giving your throat cold treats trains those local blood vessels. It forces the body to react, adapt, and build up natural biological defenses right where viruses usually try to set up camp. You aren't harming the throat with cold food, you're actively training it. And hey, you don't need to go to extremes here. You can build this tolerance right at home with a super simple progression. Start easy with a little cold yogurt. Then step it up to chilled fruit. Try normal popsicles after that. And finally, you can move all the way to actual ice cubes made from juice. It's gentle, it's gradual, and it treats the cold as just a totally normal part of everyday life, rather than some looming medical threat. Now, social media has definitely popularized a really extreme version of hardening lately, hasn't it? We're talking ice baths, freezing showers, basically just heroic suffering. But true immunity isn't built through 30 seconds of absolute torture after a full day of being stuck in an overheated room. Real hardening is way simpler. It's walking barefoot at home, keeping the windows open, and just letting the body naturally experience normal temperature shifts. Which leads us to what is basically the ultimate mantra for this whole explainer. Hardening is not a procedure, it's a lifestyle. It's not some intense macho performance you do for an audience. It is simply teaching the body to comfortably handle the very normal, everyday life it evolved to experience. Real adaptation is built through incredibly basic, everyday habits. We're talking normal room temperatures, getting regular fresh air, doing stuff outside, wearing reasonable clothing instead of bundling up like a giant marshmallow, walking barefoot, and drinking cool drinks. It's really just about not fighting nature, and instead living in harmony with it. Of course, knowing the science and actually changing our mindset, well, those are two very different things. Human nature dictates that fear always looks for simple explanations. Think about it. If a child gets sick in a sealed, overheated, super dry room, nobody blames the room, right? But if they happen to catch a bug the day after you left a window cracked open, bam! Suddenly, the open window is entirely to blame. It's just so much easier to point the finger at a random draft than to admit we might be overheating our own homes. We really have to approach this whole transition with a ton of empathy, especially when it comes to our elders. Generational fear comes from decades of habit, not scientific evidence. Those well-meaning grandparents who totally panic over a child running barefoot or eating cold fruit, they genuinely believe they are protecting that child. They're just relying on decades of outdated habits. Changing deep-seated beliefs like that is emotionally really tough, and we have to remember it all comes from a place of love. Ultimately, our goal as caregivers isn't to somehow biohack our kids to have superhuman immunity. Look at what children actually need. They need movement. They need fresh air. They need environmental variation so their bodies can actually practice adapting. They need physical activity and solid sleep. But maybe most importantly, they need fearless parents. Parents who aren't terrified of every passing breeze. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. What if the absolute healthiest thing you can do for your child is to simply stop being afraid of the cold? By letting go of that fear, you are giving their incredible, naturally adaptable bodies exactly what they need to thrive in the real world. Thanks for hanging out and exploring this with me, and I'll catch you on the next one.